So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be concluding the practice papers of AQA of set 1 and going over paper 3. Now there will be a copy of the paper in the description below for you to download and have a go at before watching this video as we go through the answers. Now I'll also put some suggested grade boundaries in the description so you can see what grade you would have got based on the averages. Now again, reminder that the grade boundaries aren't accurate because these papers were never officially done or completed by students. So let's get started on this practice paper, set 1, paper 3, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, which involves number lines and inequalities, it says circle the inequality that shows the diagram. So here, because this dot on the -7 is shaded, that's going to be a less or equal to, greater or equal to. And because this one on top of the 6 isn't shaded, it's not going to have an underline next to it, so it's going to be our second option. For question 2, it says the probability that biased coin lands on a head is 2/3, and it says the coin is spun twice, circle the probability of 2 heads. So for this, we want to multiply 2/3 by 2/3, which equals 4/9, which is our third option. Then moving on to question 3, it says water is poured into a glass for 4 seconds. The graph shows the depth of the water in the glass, and it says what is the rate of change in the depth of the water. Now for this, what we need to do is just work out the gradient. So for this, we count how many squares are going up, which is going to be 10, not 5. And we then look at the distance going across, which is 4. So it's 10 divided by 4, which is 2.5. which is, again, is our third option. Then with question 4, it says the ratio of x to y is 2 to 3. Circle the correct statement, and what we're looking for here is, and the correct statement we've got is x is 2/3 of y. Now the reason for that, let me just quickly explain, is because if we just write down the fraction and include the 2 and the 3, then in terms of y, if we make y the subject, we take the 3 over, in which we've got 2/3 of y. Then moving on to question 5, it says factorise fully. So here we need to take out the common factor between 9 and 6, which is 3, take out the common letter, which is a, and then we just need to work out what's going to go inside the brackets, which is going to be 3a minus 2. Then with question 6, it says work out the next term of the quadratic sequence. Well, the easiest way of doing this, rather than finding out what the nth term is going to be, is actually just working out the difference. So here we've got +8, then we've got +12, then we've got +16. So as you can see, the difference is increasing by 4, which means then the next difference is going to be +20. So we add 20 to 40, which gives us 60. Then moving on to question 7, it says here is an ordinary die or dice, and it says Ali is going to throw the dice 6 times. He says that he will get each number, one of each number. Give a reason why he could be wrong. And again, there's several reasons which you could say here, but I would say he may get a number more than once. So something along those lines. It's a difficult question to know the exact answer for, but something along those lines would be absolutely fine. It then says that Lucy throws the dice 50 times, and here are results. Work out the relative frequency of throwing an odd number. So for this, if we just highlight which one's the odd, so we've got 7, 12, and 9. So if I just add 7 plus 12 plus 9, that gives me 28. It's thrown 50 times, so the answer is going to be 28 over 50. It doesn't mention anything about simplifying the fraction, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I've got 14 over 25, which will be fine. Or if you want to write it as a decimal, you should have 0.56, but something along those lines. But to show evidence that you're adding those two numbers up and you've written 28 should get you the 2 marks. Now for question 8, it says that the polygon ABCD is divided into triangle as shown, and it says use the triangles to work out the sum of the interior angles of the polygon. So each triangle is 180. So then if I just simply multiply 180 by 3, I get an answer of 540. Then with question 9, it says that in a school 60% of the students are girls, 50% of the girls walk to school, 20% of the boys walk to school. What percentage of students walk to school? So for this first, what we'll do, if we just focus on the girls, and we know that we've got 50% of 60%. So 50% of 60% is going to be 30%. And then in terms of the boys, well, what we need to do is we need to work out what 20% of 40% is going to be. And if 10% is 4, 20% is going to be 8. And then we just need to add those two numbers up, which gives us 38%. Then moving on to question 10, it says the graph shows y equals a plus bx minus x squared is shown, and this question is asking us to circle the turning point of the curve. Now the turning point is this point here, which is at 216, so that's what I then need to highlight. The next question then says circle the value of a. So if I go back to the equation, now a is basically the y-intercept, so it's where the axis crosses the y-axis, which is at 12, and so that is what I need to circle. Then for 10c, it says circle the roots of the equation equals 0. Well, for this, what I'm looking for is where it crosses the x-axis. So this is at -2 and 6. So that there is my first option. Now, question 11 says that Adam and 6 other men ran a race. The times in seconds of the 6 other men are shown. The mean time of all 7 men is 9.86 seconds. Did Adam win the race? So what we need to do is work out some reverse questions. Now, there's a couple of ways in which we can do this. One way is to add up all the times, which I'm doing here. And we're going to have Adam's time as x. And if I divide that all by 7, that should give me an answer of 9.83. Now, if I simplify all of this by using my calculator to add it all up, then what I should end up with is 59.14 plus x divided by 7 equals 9.83. Remember, x is Adam's time. So from this, if I then just go and solve it, so I multiply by 7, I'm going to get 68.81 equals 59.14 plus x. So then take away the 59.14 and x gives me 9.67. So where does this time compare to all the others? Well, it's the fastest. So yes, he wins. And there we go. Now another way of working this out is to basically multiply, if I just use a different colour, so we could do 7 times 9.83, and that'll give me the total time. And let me just write that down, so the total time. Then if I add up all of these times, then and add Adam's, and then just take away the two answers, that should give me Adam's time. And that you may find is a much easier way of working out the correct answer. So looking at question 12, it says that the diagram shows a square, and the question is saying to work out the length of one side of the square. So for this, what we need to do is, as it is a square, that's 7x minus 3 equals 3 lots of x plus 1. So if we expand the brackets, I get that, and then 4x minus 3 equals 3, so 4x equals 6, so x equals 6 over 4, which is 3 over 2, which is 1.5. Now the question is asking us to work out what one length is, so what I need to do now is substitute 1.5 into one of those sides. So if I just use, let's say, 7x minus 3, I get 7 times 1.5, take away 3, and if I reach for my calculator, 7 times 1.5 is 10.5, take away 3 gives me an answer of 7.5. Then for question 13, it says that a circle has the equation of x squared plus y squared equals 4, and it says circle the length of the radius. Now this represents r squared, so therefore r is going to be the square root of 4, which is not 4, it is 2. So let's quickly get rid of the evidence of that point mistake. Then with question 14, it says that a, b, c are different prime numbers less than 20, and the question's asking us work out the two possible sets of a, b, and c. So remember that a and B and C are prime numbers and whole prime numbers, so we can't have decimals. And this is a bit of a trial and error of working this out. So possible answers you could have are 5, I'm writing rubber, 5, 3 and 13. Another set of answers you could have are 7, 11 and 5, and another set of numbers you could have are 5, 2 and 17. So again, just a case of just trial and error in terms of working that one out. With question 15, it says simplify. We just need to expand the brackets. So here, remember that when we've got numbers and we've got powers, we just actually need to do that. So 8 squared is 64. Then we multiply the powers, so that's going to be x to the power of 6 and y to the power of 10. Then moving on to question 16, it says that the diagram shows a lawn with a fence along one edge, and it says that 1 can of weed killer covers 90 square meters. Each can costs £19.25. Work out the total cost of the cans of weed killer needed to cover the lawn. So for this, what we need to do first is work out what this length here is. Now, how do we do that? Well, that length there is the same as this length here. And this length here, and hopefully you spotted that it's a right angle triangle, so, and its h is what we're trying to work out. And this length here is going to be the difference between the two sides, so that's going to be 8. So working out what h is, so h squared equals 17 squared minus 8 squared, so h squared equals 225, so h equals 15. So the length of the fence is 15. Now from this, what I can then do is work out what the total area is going to be. Now it is a trapezium, so the total area is going to be the two parallel sides, so it's 12 plus 20 times the height, which I've just worked out is 15, divided by 2. And that gives me an area of 240 meters squared. Now for this, I need to know how many cans I need. So if I divide that by 90, then I'm going to need about 2.66 cans. Now obviously you can't go to the shop and buy 2.6 recurring cans, so how many cans am I going to need? Well, I'm going to need 3, so 3 cans are needed. So to work out the cost, it's going to be 3 times 19.25, which gives me a cost of £57.75. Then working with question 17, it says we just need to expand the brackets. So relatively simple, this one. So we should have 6x squared minus 16xy plus 15xy minus 40y squared. And then joining these two things together, I should have 6x squared minus 1xy minus 40y squared. Then looking at question 18, it says that the ratio of the number of boys to girls at a party is 3 to 4. 6 boys leave the party. The ratio of the boys to the girls at the party is now 5 to 8. Work out the number of girls at the party. So for this, what we need to do first is set up the ratio. So here I'm just going to label this as 3x and 4x. And then looking at when the 6 boys leave, then that's going to be 3x minus 6 to 4x. Now from this, and that all equals 5 to 8. So from this, if I do a little bit of cross multiplying, we've got that 3x minus 6 over 4x should equal 5 over 8. And this is where I can then do the cross multiplying. So what I've got is I've got 8 lots of 3x minus 6 equals 5 lots of 4x, in which I've got 24x minus 48 equals 20x. Then if I then go on to solve this, I get x equals 12. Now from this, if x equals 12, then what we've got then is girls is 4x, then 4x is going to equal 48. So how many girls are at the party? 48. So then looking at question 19, it says in the UK in 2000, 25% of the population were under 24 years, 50% of the population were under 37. The interquartile range was 32 and the oldest person was 107. And what we need to do is represent this data in a box plot. So for this is going to be our lower quartile. So I've got a line at 25, which is just there. Now again, recommend using ruler. 50%, which is our median, which is at 37. So I'm going to say that's about there. And it says that the interquartile range is 32. So what I need to do is the upper quartile is going to be equal to, don't want to put plus there, is going to be equal to the lower quartile plus 32, which gives me around about 56. So that's going to be around about there. And then what we then need to do, the oldest person, which is 107, so that's going to be roughly about there. Now in terms of the youngest, which is the only one I'm looking at, it's going to be a newborn, so that's going to be at 0. And then all I then need to do is complete the box plot by making it look like so. And again, should be using a ruler, but it should look something like that. Then the next question, 19b, says it is predicted that in 2050 the age distribution in the UK, the lower quartile is 26, the median is 44, and the upper quartile is 66. And the question is asking us to make 2 comments about the predicted age distribution in the UK between 2000 and 2050. So for this, what we need to do is whenever you're comparing a box and whisker or any statistical data, you want to have a comment on the average and you want to have a comment on the spread. If you can spell it correctly. So in terms of this, what would be a decent statement? I would say that the median age of the population will increase, and so the average age will increase. And then in terms of the spread, this is where you're comparing the interquartile range. So as the IQR gets bigger, ages are more spread out. So something along those lines, but I would say definitely make a comment on the average and definitely make a comment on the interquartile range or the spread of data. So moving on to question 20, it says that amount of money is invested in for 8 years. It earned compound interest of 2.5 interest per year. After 8 years, the total value of the investment was 11,696.67 pence. Tom is trying to work out the total interest paid, and this is his calculation. And we just need to state what is wrong with his calculation. So again, something along the lines of, and in terms of this, is that it should be, oh, don't know why I'm writing it there. So it should be 11696.67 over 1.025 to the power of 8 in terms of compound interest. But also another reason is that he is using simple interest, not compound interest, because obviously the interest amount is going to be changing on year. Then for B, it then says work out the total interest earned. So for this, what I need to do is look at the total amount, which is 11,696.67 pence. Take away that from the original amount, which is 11696.67 divided by 1.025 to the power of 8. And if I type that all into my calculator, I should have an answer of 2,096.67 pence. Moving on to question 21, it says Mersenne primes are prime numbers that can be written in the form of 2 to the power n minus 1, where n is a whole number. For example, 3 can be written as 2 squared minus 1. Prove that 2 to the power of 9 minus 1 is not a Mersenne prime. So for this, if I just work out what 2 to the power 9 is, so that's 512 minus 1, which is 511. Now to prove that 511 isn't a prime number, what you can do is on your calculator, if you press 511, press equals, and then press shift, and then fact, and then it should come up that you can write 511 equals 7 times 73. So 7 is a factor, which is why 2 to the power 9 is not a prime in terms of these Mersenne primes. It says there are Mersenne primes when n equals 5 and when n equals 7. Amma says that the ratio of the indices is 5 to 7. This means that the ratio of the Mersenne primes are 5 to 7. Show that Amma is wrong. Well, when n equals 5, what do we get? Well, we get 2 to the power 5 minus 1, which is 31. Then when n equals 7, we get 2 to the power 7 minus 1, which is 127. And the ratio of 31 to 127 is not the same. It cannot be simplified as 5 to 7. So therefore, she is wrong. Then moving on to question 2, it says work out the value of y in this triangle. Now hopefully you would have spotted that this is going to be a sine rule question. So if I just label these up, and here we've got b and we've got little b. So what I've then got is, so substituting numbers into the sine rule, I get 15 over sine 70 equals y over sine 35. Then if I do a little bit of rearranging, let me just get rid of that cursor. So here I get 15 sine 35 equals y lots of sine 70. So then 15 sine 35 over sine 70 equals y. And if I type that all into my calculator, do a bit of rounding, I should get 9.16. And looking at question 23, it says 2x squared minus 20x plus c is an identity, or can written in terms of looking at in that form. And it's a question saying work out the value of c. So what we need to do is do a bit of completing the square. So for this, if I just do the long way, so if I factorize this in terms of 2, take 2 out, then I end up with x squared minus 10x plus c over 2. Then what I can then do is use completing the square. So I've got 2, and then I've got x minus 5 squared plus c over 2 minus 25. And then from this I can then expand everything out in terms of multiply it by 2, so I get 2x minus 5 squared plus c minus 50. Now from this what I can then say is that b equals 5, and if b equals 5, then 3b is going to equal 15. And then from this I've got that c minus 50 equals 15, because I'm comparing this to this, and then c equals going to give me an answer of 65. There is my final answer for that one. Then looking at question 24, so looking at circle theorems, it says we've got this diagram, and the question is asking us that is a to c the diameter of this. Now the answer you should have is false, and the reason for that is because ABC is not equal to 90 degrees. If AC is a diameter, then the opposite angle should be 90 degrees, and as you can see, it is not. Then looking at the next statement, angle ADC equals 88. Well, that is true, and the reason for that is because opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral add up to 180 degrees. And then the next question then says ABCD is a trapezium. That is also true, and again the reason for that is because alternate angles ACD and CAB equal 50 degrees, so are parallel. And obviously in a trapezium you have a set of parallel lines. And then the last statement is DE is a tangent to the circle. Well, that's going to be false, and the reason for that is because angle CAD equals 42 degrees, and it should be 32 degrees if DE is a tangent by alternate segment theorem. And so something along those lines would be fine for those marks. Then moving on to question 25, it says that a formula connecting speed, distance, time is this, and we've got values of d and t which are rounded to 2 sig fig, and it says work out the upper and lower bounds for s. Give your answers to 3 sig fig. Now in terms of upper and lower bounds, using a calculation, that to get my upper value of a fraction, well, I want the biggest denominator at the top and the smallest at the bottom. to get the lower bound, I need to have the smallest at the top and the biggest at the bottom. Now in terms of my upper and lower bounds for these, so this one, the lower bound is going to be plus or minus, well, the second sig fig is a 10, so we need to do 160 plus or minus half 10, which is 5. So that's going to give me 155 and 165. In this T, the second sig fig is 0.1, so what I need to do to work out the upper and lower bounds, I've got 7.2 plus or minus half of 0.1 is 0.05. So then the upper and lower bound is going to be 7.15 and 7.25. So then going back to these two things here, that my lower bound is going to be the smallest of D, which is 155, divided by the biggest of the T, which is 7.25. And if I type that all into my calculator, I should have 21.379, which rounded to 3 sig fig is 21.4. And then for the upper bound, I want the biggest number at the top, so the biggest D, which is 165, and the smallest T, that's 7.15, and that should give me an answer of 23.0769, which rounded to 3 sig fig should give me 23.1. Then all I then need to do is just make sure I'm writing those numbers in the correct place. So I've got 23.1 and 21.4. Then moving on to question 26, it says for all values of x, so here we're looking at functions, show that fg equals, and then we've got this expression here. So what I need to do is I need to take the expression of g of x and replace this x with this with g of x. So what I've got is replacing that x with x minus 5. So I've got x minus 5 squared plus 1. And then if I expand this out, I get x squared minus 10x plus 25 plus 1, which then equals x squared minus 10x plus 26. And that's what they've asked me to prove. Then for question 26b, it says show that fg of x equals gf of x. Well, then from this, if I just work this out, so the first bit here is basically the same as A. And then for the second bit, this is where I need to substitute f into g. So instead I'm going to replace this where I've got an x. So here I'm going to end up with x squared plus 1 in brackets, take away 5. Then if I expand the brackets out, I get x squared minus 10x plus 26 equals x squared, and it's going to be minus 4. Then if I take away the x from both sides, I'm left with minus 10x plus 26 equals minus 4. Then I've got minus 10x equals minus 30, so x equals 3, and there we've gone on to solve it. Then looking at question 27, which is our last question, it says the volume of the pyramid, and then we've got our formula, VABCD is a rectangular based pyramid with a volume of 336 meters cubed. X is the center of the horizontal base directly below V, and the question is asking us to work out the angle between VB and the base. So what they're actually asking us to do is to work out what this angle here is. Now for this, what I need to do first is I need to work out what some of these lengths are going to be. So first things first, because I know that this is going to be a 3D problem, I need to work out what that blue line there is. So A to C squared is going to be 14 squared plus 8 squared. So AC squared is going to be 260. So AC equals the square root of 260. So therefore, X to B is going to be root 260 over 2, because it's going to be half that distance here. So this distance is what I've found. And that length there is root 260 divided by 2. Now, the next thing I then need to do is to work out what the area of the base is going to be. Well, in terms of using the formula to work out what the perpendicular height is. So what I've got is, so using this, what I know is that a third times 112, And again, where have I got 112 from? Well, that's from the base area of the base, which is 14 times 8. And that's times by h equals 336. So rearranging this, what I then end up with is that h equals 9. So this distance here is 9. Then from that, what I can then do is, of the triangle that I've got, and this is the angle that I'm working at, this is root 260 divided by 2. This length is 9. So then picking the right trig ratio, well, it's going to be tan. So tan x equals 9 over root 260 over 2. And then so inverse of all of that, which is going to look extremely messy when you write it up, equals x. And I should get an x value on the calculator as 48.1458, which, rounding it up, gives me 48.1 degrees. And there is my final answer, and concludes the end of this test paper. Now, we'll put some suggested grade boundaries in the description below so you can see what grade you would have got. But like I said, this was a specimen paper, so there weren't any official grading to this.